यथा दीपः निवातस्थः यथा दीपो निवातस्थो निंगते न इंगते सा उपमा स्मृता निंगते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनः यदचित्तस्य युञ्जतः योगम् आत्मनः यथा दीपो निवातस्थो निंगते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो यतचित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः यथा दीपो निवातस्थो निंगते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो यतचित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः यथा दीपो निवातस्थो निंगते सोपमा स्मृता योगिनो यतचित्तस्य युञ्जतो योगमात्मनः यथा as deepah a lamp nivatastha in a place without wind na does not ingate waver sa upama compared to that smrita likened yoginaha of the yogi yata chittasya whose mind is controlled yunjataha constantly engaged in yogam meditation atmanaha on transcendence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Translation with repetition. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A truly Krishna conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. Thus ends the short, beautiful, wonderful, transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are seeing Sankhya Yoga and the wonderful explanation of Srila Prabhupada as to how this is relevant for all of us in Bhakti Yoga. Yesterday we saw the importance of disciplining our mind and doing things constantly. That is why Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. That's why Satatam Kirtayantu Vishnu. And we also saw how Nispruha Sarva Kamebhyo Yukta Iti Uchyate Tada, the transcendental achievement. Today's verse is one of the most seminal verses of Bhagavad Gita. Very powerful, very important, and a very powerful analogy which Krishna gives. Let's spend some time in understanding this. The title for today's verse is Undisturbed Meditation. Okay, and before we go and delve deeper into this verse, I want all of you to spend a few seconds in meditating on this lamp which is steady, which is unwavering in a windless place. So Krishna's example in this is Nindate Sopama Smrita, Yatha Deepo Nivatasto Nindate Sopama Smrita. And Na Ingate has been translated by Prabhupada as not wavering. Ingate is wavering and Na is not. So Yatha, as I said yesterday also, wherever there is a Yatha, you have to see a Tatha. Yatha Deepo Nivatasto Ningate Sopama Smrita Yogina Yata Chittasya Yunjata Yoga Atmanaha. Now this example of a lamp in a windless place is given by different people. But the source of this comes from Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna himself is giving this example. A lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. If you see the verse, which I want you to see, I've never seen a verse which can be fitted in just in one page, where my translation purport, everything is just fitted. Usually goes multiple pages. The translation says, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. And an equally brilliant purport in one line, Prabhupada says, a truly Krishna conscious person, who's a truly Krishna conscious person, who's always absorbed in transcendence, what happens to him? In constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. You talk about steadiness, you ask who is a person who is steady. Of course, this is asked by Arjuna, Sthita Prajna. But here is an example, a truly Krishna conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. So to understand this verse a little more, I want you to remember this definition of eloquence, which is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very interesting definition of eloquence, which Srila Prabhupada gives. This is there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The definition of eloquence is essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. You don't need volumes of papers. You don't need really a lot of explanations. So each word in this, essential truth spoken concisely, mind you. So the truth has to be spoken, and the truth which is essential has to be spoken, and it has to be spoken concisely. Then this is called true eloquence. And the beautiful example of this verse, where Prabhupada just takes the essence of the verse and just puts it in one line in the purport and says everything. If we just pay attention to that, we will unpack that. We will see how it is relevant, not just for us, transcendentalists or aspiring devotees, but for anyone who is looking for peace in this world. Anyone who is in the path of peace, doesn't matter. Devotional service comes much later. You may be a materialist. You may be someone who's there outside who has no exposure to Krishna consciousness. We have no understanding of what devotional life is all about. Still, people are looking for peace. And this verse, and this chapter in particular, talks about how a person can become peaceful. We see in this world there are so many organizations which talk about peace, universal brotherhood, living in harmony, this kind of things. But this will not be successful, and Prabhupada mentions this at various places, because the reasons are, one of the primary reasons for that is the people who are constituting this organization, they themselves are not peaceful. If they themselves are not peaceful, how can they give peace to others? And why are they not peaceful? Well, they are not peaceful because they are dealing with a wavering mind, and they don't know how to deal with that. If you are dealing with a platform of wavering mind, you can never be peaceful. And this is what Krishna says in this verse, very beautiful verse. If the mind is wavering, then peace can never be achieved. Usually the moment when we talk about peace, we associate with our external behavior. I should speak politely. My actions should be very nice or cordial, welcoming. But more than our external behavior, our bodily actions, it is our internal mind. If it is not controlled, if it is disturbed, we can never be peaceful. For a person whose mind is controlled, even though he's there in the chaotic situation, he'll be peaceful. But for a person whose mind is not controlled, even if he's there in a peaceful state, he cannot be peaceful. He'll be disturbed within. So based on this verse, the solution, the root cause, as it is mentioned, is that the wavering mind is the root of all problems. Probably there could not be a single person who has not been exposed to Krishna consciousness can say, on my own, my mind is controlled. So the word used is wavering. That means the mind is there in more than one place. Maybe we are sitting here, maybe you are just sitting and listening, but mind might be there somewhere else. It is not fixed or steady in one place. Definitely more than one. So it is going from here to there, from there to somewhere else, from there to another place. And when the mind is constantly wavering like this, it becomes the root of all our problems. Srimad Bhagavatam, the scripture, says that the function of mind which is wavering can be classified into these two categories, Sankalpa and Vikalpa. When somebody is in the mental platform, he either accepts things which he likes based on his mind's dictation, or he rejects things. This is good for me, this is not good for me. This is good for my wife, this is good for my husband, this is not good for my wife, this is not good for my husband. This is good for my children, this is not good for my children. Sankalpa and Vikalpa. And there is a constant battle, there is a constant shifting which happens between this. Because the person is fixed in the platform of mind, which is not fixed, which is wavering. So either there is acceptance and rejection, or Sankalpa and Vikalpa, and this is going on so frequently that the person is always disturbed. In one of the purports in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada mentions this, that regardless of whichever path one follows, and he puts in the bracket impersonalism, meditation, Sankhya, whatever you are following, regardless of whichever path one follows, one can never become peaceful on the platform of agitated mind. This is a very powerful sentence. So it doesn't matter whether you are in the path of devotion or any other path, regardless of whichever path one follows, one can never become peaceful on the platform of agitated mind. This is what exactly is happening to all of us. In the platform of agitated mind, if we want to be peaceful, if we want to become calm, undisturbed, it's impossible. And taking a clue from our morning Bhagavatam, where we are discussing this very interesting conversation between Narad Muni and Vedavyas. Actually, Narad Muni pinpoints this in very beautiful verse. I want you to pay attention to this very, very wonderful verse. Tato anyatha kinchana yad vivakshata prithak drishastat kritarupa namabhi nakarhichit kwapi cha dusthita matir labhet bata hatanaur ivaspadam. Actually, this verse, this is 1.5.14. Tato anyatha kinchana yad vivakshataha prithak drishastat kritarupa namabhi nakarhichit kwapi cha dusthita matir labhet bata hatanaur ivaspadam. If we pay attention to the translation, what Narad Muni is telling is, whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord. So if you desire something other than Krishna, other than the Supreme Absolute Truth, other than the Supreme Lord, whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts. There is a reaction. Reaction is the Sankalpa and Vikalpa. Because we are not fixing our mind, or we are not desiring something related to the Lord, whatever else it may be. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts. How does it react? With different forms, names, results to agitate the mind. Sometimes even devotees say, having taken to this process of devotion, having practicing for so many years, being initiated, why my mind is disturbed, why my mind is still agitated. The reason is not there somewhere outside, it is there within. If our desires are something which is other than Krishna, if our mind is going towards that, there has to be, if there is some kind of disturbance or agitation, it has to be material. As Kunti Maharani also says in her prayer, Bhutanam yan mitah kali. When the center of activity is not Krishna and something else, there is kali, there is quarrel. Any disturbance, any problem in the mind, if you see, there has to be a material reason. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind. And then Narad Muni gives this wonderful example. As the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Vata hata naur ivaspadam. Naur ivaspadam. Now, to picture this, because these verses need to be pictured in our mind, what we are discussing, and unless we have a picture in our mind, it's not easy to remember. So what Narada Muni is telling is, Vata hata naur ivaspadam. Vata ahata, troubled by the wind. See, look at this boat, which is there in the shore. And there are a lot of big stones and boulders which are there. Now, if the boat doesn't have an anchor and there is a strong wind, then this boat is going to get destroyed. Actually, same thing happens to us in material life. The wind doesn't ask our permission. Can I blow? I'm going to blow now. Be ready. Take some shelter. It blows. And when it blows, it has a repercussion on us. It has its impact on us. First thing that affects, or first thing that happens on us is our mind gets affected when something goes wrong. And when the mind is affected, is disturbed, whole thing collapses. So that is why what Narada Muni is telling is, Labheta bhata hata naur ivaspadam. This boat which I am showing is in a water which is still. But material world is not like that. Material world has got this turbulent tides and waves, choppy waves. And in that choppy waves, if somebody has to anchor the boat, first criteria which is required is that the man should be strong enough to pull the boat. If the man is not strong, then the boat cannot be pulled. And the second thing is, where he is anchoring that also has to be strong. If the anchoring or the resting place is not strong, then also it will not work. So taking this analogy further, in our life, which is, this ocean, material ocean where we are placed, where there are constant disturbance in the form of these waves, and this gets aggravated by the strong wind. We need a strong man like our spiritual master who can pull this mind like boat. We have seen this earlier also in one of the verses, superior dictation, right? The mind, which is compared to the boat, if it has to be anchored, then we need a strong man who can pull this. And the pulling is, that rope is actually his direction, his dictation, his instructions, which the mind must follow if the mind wants to get controlled. And what does the spiritual master do? Does he anchor it to himself? Or does he anchor it to something which is temporary? No, he anchors it to the lotus feet of the Lord. Strong anchor, like Krishna's lotus feet. This is the clue. Yesterday also we were seeing Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. The mind is attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo. Vacham Sivai Kuntha Gunanu Varnane. Then the mind can remain fixed. Is it easy? But is it possible? Yes. How do we do it? Let's see this. So, going further, one question which we may often ask is why the mind is wavering. Okay, we understood that if the mind is wavering, then we need help from the spiritual master, follow his instructions 100%, and we need to anchor ourselves to the lotus feet of Lord. Well, the question is why the mind is wavering. The answer is the mind is wavering because we are feeding the mind with wrong things. We often don't pay attention to what we are feeding our mind with. We give our mind all kinds of things, right? And when the mind is fed with all these kinds of things, there is a strong impression which is formed. Bhagavatam says, Shotta Vyadini Rajendra Niram Santi Sahasrasha Apasyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grihamitina. Thousands of things are there in this world, and people allow them to indulge. People allow themselves, their dependents, their relatives, near and dear ones to indulge because they don't know. They think it is okay. So what happens is, and there are thousands of such topics, when we are, feeding them, then the mind constantly wavers. Sankalpa and Vikalpa happens. I like it, I don't like it. I accept it, I reject it. And in that fluctuating platform, that wavering platform, how can mind be peaceful? Shota Vyadini Rajendra Nrinam Santi Sahasrasa Apasyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grihamitina. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. The reason why this feeding is wrong, because Apasyatam Atma Tattvam. They're blind to self-realization, the ultimate truth. And they're subject to hearing. How many subject matters for hearing is there in this society? So what we hear, what we allow our mind to be fed, creates a lasting, longing impression in the mind. And then it is very difficult to undo all those things. That's why that garbage in, garbage out, right? So the moment you put garbage inside, what do you expect the mind to do? Do you expect the mind to function well when you are feeding the mind with all kinds of garbage, all kinds of nonsense things, all kinds of useless things which we know, which we ourselves know, but yet we allow ourselves to, get subjected to this garbage. Garbage comes out. So what happens when you feed your mind with all these things? Then this is called the weakness of heart. The heart becomes weak. You develop a weakness for those items, those things. You want to hear them more and more. You get constantly addicted to those things, not to the lotus feet of the Lord, but to all those temporary, seemingly alluring things, which makes our heart weak. And then it does, the strength to say no reduces and diminishes. And even our family members who are aware of the repercussions of it somehow are not able to pull us, not able to stop us, because there is a weakness of heart and people succumb to that. Then what happens? As Bhagavatam says, then those people, Nidraya Hriyate Naktam Vyavayena Chabhavaya Divacharte Haya Rajan Kutumba Bharanenava. Very beautiful verse. Then when you are feeding such garbage, all these kinds of filthy things to your mind, then you develop certain habits, certain actions, you do it repeatedly. This becomes a pattern. What is the habit? The lifetime of such envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence. And in the daytime, either in making money or maintaining family. Somebody who's a materialist, who's an outsider, he will say, what is wrong with this? This is life. Night I'm sleeping nicely in a comfortable, cozy way. Attraction for opposite sex is there. Daytime I'm taking care of my family. It's like, when somebody hears this, it's like as if you're showering some flowers on someone. Very nice. Okay, beautiful. This is what life is. But when the same words are falling in the on the body of a person who's aspiring to become self-realized, these are like stones hitting. Nidraya hiyate naktam vyavayena chavavaya divacharte haya rajan kutumba bharahena. So the lifetime of such envious person is going out in this way, and person is not able to see the repercussions of this because he is apasyatam atma tattvam. He's not able to see this. He's blind to the self-realization. What happens if somebody continues to do this? So first he's feeding the mind with all kinds of wrong things, and the wrong impressions are getting formed. So wrong lifestyle, wrong activities, wrong habits are getting formed. When this wrong habits and wrong lifestyle is formed, then the next thing is, which Krishna says in 2nd chapter 41st verse, the resolution of mind, the resolute determination of mind doesn't happen. Why it doesn't happen? Because Bhagavatam is telling, Deha Patya Kalatradishu Atma Sainyeshu Asatsvapi Desham Pramatta Nidhanam Pashyanapi na Pashyati. Then the anchors are all wrong. Instead of Krishna's lotus feet, the anchor, the confidence that one has is, my body will protect me. Deha, Apatya, my wife, my husband, my spouse will come for my rescue. Kalatra, then my children, once they become grown up, they will be happy, they will be strong, they will be capable to protect me. All wrong anchors. Deha Patya Kalatradishu Atma Sainyeshu Asatsvapi Tesham Pramatta Nidhanam Pashyanapi na Pashyati. He's not able to see that in due course of time, they're getting destroyed, one after another. Fallible soldiers. But because the wrong impressions have been fed and the wrong habits are formed, so this is leading to all these things. Elsewhere in Bhagavatam, Vidura, when he's instructing to Dhritarashtra, he says, Evam griheshu saktanam pramattanam tadihaya atya kramad abhigyatah kalah paramadustara. Kalah paramadustara. This time factor is imperceptible. Nobody is seeing, nobody knows. Sometimes when you're engrossed in watching a movie, even a 3 hours movie appears like 15 minutes. Oh, so soon it got over. But when it comes to self-realization, my God, even sitting for 15 minutes appears like I've sat here for one yuga, one era has passed by. And so that is why Bhagavatam is telling, Vidura is instructing to Dhritarashtra, Evam griheshu saktanam pramattanam tadihaya. And we amplify this. We amplify certain emotions very nice, very big way. Oh, my child has done this. Oh, so nice. Actually, it is nothing great. It's good. I mean, encouragement is required for a person to perform or achieve and excel. But overdoing that, when we overindulge, today morning in the Japa talk, Madhubani Prabhu was talking about this amplification. That if in the Brahmachari ashram, there is an announcement that there is going to be a feast in the night, then from morning till night, the person is amplifying that pleasure in his mind. Oh, there's going to be a feast. Feast is there. There is some pleasure in that, whatever that feast is. But the amplification in the mind aggravates that whole thing. Similarly, some of the relationships that we have in our material world, not that we are not supposed to have any relationships. We are. But we have to do it in a manner which is not overdoing it. My child, the best child, what a singer he is. What a singer, what a performer. And in that process, oh, my wife, my brother, even if he is not the best, but in our eyes, he appears to be the best. We amplify our emotions in those activities, in those indulgences, then it becomes further more difficult. So there is wrong impressions, wrong actions, wrong habits, And then wrong actions and wrong habits leads to putting our faith in wrong anchors, which are all fallible. We know from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, from all our Vedic scriptures, only Krishna can protect us. Rakhe Krishna mare Krishna rakhe ke. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are coming from. Our faith, our dependency, our conviction should be on Krishna, but we put faith in all other places other than Krishna. Going further, so when the mind is wavering, it is actually compared to an unchaste mind. Like a person who's wavering. Today he's with someone, tomorrow with another person. Not chaste, unchaste. So wavering mind is compared to unchaste mind, or is called as unchaste mind. I want to give you a very nice example of this. The example is that of Diti's pregnancy. We know this when Jai Vijay was cursed by the 4 Kumaras in the Vaikuntha. They took 3 births. And the first birth was in the womb of Diti. And Diti had a relationship with Kashyapa in a wrong time, in a time when she was not supposed to have. Kashyapa was trying to tell her not to do, but that was the power of Kala, the effect of time, and they indulged, and she got pregnant. But when she became pregnant, the omens were extremely inauspicious. There was darkness in the universe. There was darkness in the sky. All kinds of filthy things started falling from the sky. And the whole, the balance between the seasons changed. The rains happened in unseasonal way. All kinds of disastrous things started happening. When that happened, the demigods, Devatas, they went to Brahma. And they were very scared. They expressed their helplessness, and they expressed, what's going on? What's happening here? What's the cause for this? What should we do? They were agitated in their mind. They were disturbed. They didn't know what to do. What did Brahma say? It's very worth paying attention, because these things happen in our life. Forget the verse. I have highlighted the translation in red. Let's read the translation. My dear sons, the Lord is the controller of the 3 modes of nature and is responsible for the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe. So Brahma is telling, don't worry, actually this creation, the whole creation, sometimes we lack the big picture. We think we are only the controller of our own lives. We don't realize how tiny we are and how much we are controlled in our lives. So Brahma's words, my dear sons, the Lord is the controller of the 3 modes of nature and is responsible for the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe. His wonderful creative power, Yogamaya, cannot be easily understood even by the masters of yoga. And now pay attention to this last 2 lines, which Brahma says. That most ancient person, the personality of Godhead, will alone come to our rescue. What purpose can we serve on his behalf by deliberating on the subject? Sometimes things happen in our life, but if we look for solutions on our own, if we try to feel we are the controller, we can take care of everything, the more we do, the more we get agitated, the more we get disturbed. What Brahma is telling, actually the whole world, the creation, maintenance, and dissolution is done by the Lord. And his Yogamaya potency, when it is acting, even the master of yoga cannot figure it out. So that Lord will alone come for our rescue. This is the belief, this is the conviction that a devotee has, that the Lord's protection is there. He will protect me. I have surrendered to him. Krishna has given this promise. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. My devotees will not perish. You should have faith in that words. You should have conviction in that. And then the last line, which Brahma says, what purpose can we serve on his behalf by deliberating? Like constantly thinking about it. What happened? How to do? What to do? This. What purpose can we solve? Can we serve? Now, I want to give you 2 very interesting examples from Bhagavatam to take this discussion further. The first example is that of Pratha Maharaja and Indra. Now, these examples are so wonderful that Bhagavatam is full of all those real life examples where devotees are encountered with similar problems, and by their life lessons we can see how we need to behave when such things happen in our lives. First example is Pratha Maharaja and Indra. If you don't know, Pratha Maharaj had performed 99 horse sacrifices. He's an incarnation of the Lord, Saktya Avatar. And if he performs, so the only other person who has done more than Pratha Maharaj at that point in time was Indra, who had done 100 sacrifices. So if Pratha Maharaj, who was the emperor of the whole universe, even the Mother Earth, was scared to supply all the necessities because he became angry. He was so pious, he was so chaste, he was such a devotee that Mother Earth was supplying all the necessities required for all the subjects. That Pratha Maharaj had completed 99 horse sacrifices, mind you. If you are a very powerful person and you have been working hard to achieve a particular goal, it's there in your grasp. It's just this close. And then somebody comes who's a non-existent, non-entity. If Pratha Maharaj wants to kill Indra, Indra doesn't stand a chance. Indra was running away. He was scared of his life, but he was not giving up. Again and again, he was trying to come and disturb this fire sacrifice. Pratha Maharaj, if he wanted, he could have done it. But very, very interestingly, he was about to kill him. Actually. He was about to kill Indra. And suddenly, Brahma intervened there. And there is something which he says, which is of great importance to all of us. So this verse, Brahma is telling to Pratha Maharaj, my dear king, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to providential impediments. Mind you, there could be a hand of the Lord, will of the Lord. Despite all our efforts, despite everything that we want to achieve, may not happen. But what is the solution? What is the advice which Brahma is giving? My dear king, do not be agitated and anxious. Don't be. Because after all, Krishna is the supreme autocrat. He's Swarat. And by his will, everything is happening. You see in the small little portions of the festivals that we celebrate, like Govardhan Puja in Vrindavan. Krishna wanted Govardhan Puja to happen where there was some worship for Indra was going on for many, many generations. They stopped. It happened. Krishna left the Brajavasis, despite the Brajavasis being very close to him. That's how it is. So we need to, but there is a very interesting thing in Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. There is a mention of one verse which I'm not able to exactly recollect, but it says that the Brajavasis in the daytime used to work very hard, and in the night they used to sleep peacefully because they were always dependent on Krishna. They have always accepted Krishna's role, Krishna's hand in all their activities. So here Brahma is telling to Pratha Maharaj, my dear king, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to providential impediments. There is a plan of the Lord because of which your sacrifices is not being done. But don't get agitated or anxious. And then he says, kindly take my words with great respect. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. The last line is a very powerful one. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. Mano tirushtam visate tamo andham. There is something which is happening because Lord's will is supreme will. They're not able to accept it in our lives. And if we are getting agitated and anxious and trying to do a reversal for this, then we are entering into the darkest region of materialistic thought. Mano tirushtam visate tamo andham. And in the purport, one sentence Prabhupada uses, the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. What a powerful sentence it is. Any material action that happens to us, anything which we don't like, which is unpleasant, and we try to counter, we try to do something. Here it is mentioned, the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Anxieties grow. For a devotee, it is very important to understand the hands of Lord. Acceptance is a very big thing in the way the devotee's life are described in Bhagavad. Be it Parikshit being cursed, despite no fault of his, be it the demon who was produced by Durvasa Muni to kill Ambarish, he accepted it without any counteraction. These are all things which are very important. They were completely sinless, they were completely offenseless, yet they were getting some reactions, yet they were not reacting per se to whatever was happening. They were seeing the hands of the Lord in that. That's a very important thing to know and to apply if we want our mind not to get agitated or disturbed. But there is another thing which I want to highlight in this connection, and that happens when Brahma further says, "O protector of the people in general," pay attention to this, "O protector of the people in general, please consider the purpose of your being incarnated by Lord Vishnu." When this agitation and disturbance of mind happens, we often lose sight of the purpose. So Brahma is reminding Pratha Maharaja, please consider the purpose of your being incarnated by Lord Vishnu. You came here to protect the citizens. Now you are killing Indra. The irreligious principles created by Indra are but mothers of so many unwanted religions. Please therefore stop these imitations immediately. Now, this is something very, very interesting, because Brahma said, and unless a person is properly situated, cannot accept these words. It's not easy. So he's telling, Pratha Maharaj, what are you doing? You are supposed to take care of the citizens. Now you're killing Indra for what purpose? You want to achieve that 100 sacrifices, but what is the point? You're missing the big purpose in life. Similarly, also, in our life, sometimes when we lose sight of the big picture, what is the big picture? If we are not aware of it, then everything looks very topsy-turvy. So what is the big picture? You're talking about big picture, so what is the big picture? I want to tell one verse from Mukundamala Stotra to explain what is the big picture. As you know, Mukundamala Stotra is very, very nice. And this verse, Kulashekara Alvar is praying, Prithvi Renur Anu Prayamsi Kanika Falgu Spulingo Laghus Tejo Niswasanam Marutanutaram Randhram Susukshmam Nabha Kshudra Rudra Pitamaha Prabhrutaya Kita Samasta Sura Drishte Yatra Satarako Vijayate Shripad Dhuli Kana. The translation of this is very nice. So what Kulashekara Alvar is telling, that you see, O conditioned living entities, see and understand this truth. Once our Savior has been seen, the whole earth becomes no greater than a speck of dust. It's the big picture. If you see it from the vision of the Lord, right? What is this big earth? The whole earth becomes no greater than a speck of dust. All the waters of the ocean become mere droplets. The oceans, which appears gigantic from Krishna's point of view, just mere droplets. The totality of fire becomes a minute spark. The winds become just a faint sigh. That's all. And the expanse of space becomes a tiny hole. Great lords like Rudra and grandfather Brahma become insignificant. And all the demigods become like small insects. Indeed, even one particle of dust from the Lord's feet conquers all. One particle from the Lord's feet conquers all. So in place of that Supreme Lord, what is the position of all these things? But we miss that big picture and we try to do some things on our own, trying to get some reversals, doing counteractions, and we get more and more material anxiety. Okay, the second example that I want to give, which is also very powerful, and another very beautiful example with that. But very, very interesting. Actually, if you have not read this portion of Bhagavatam, I strongly recommend read and just see the depths of Bhagavatam. Beautiful. So this is the example of Daksha's sacrifice, fire sacrifice being done by Daksha. And as you know, Daksha, the great progenitor, had invited all big, famous, powerful personalities of the whole universe, in which Brahma and Shiva were also present. And when Daksha entered into the arena of that fire sacrifice, everybody stood up, except two personalities, Brahma and Shiva, because of their exalted position. Not that they were puffed up or proud or anything of that sort. They didn't stand, but coincidentally, Shiva happens to be the son-in-law of Daksha. And Daksha could not take this. And he justifies his actions before he performs. You know who I am? I'm the upholder of religion. I know what's right, what's wrong. I know what I'm doing. And then he started blaspheming Shiva. And when he started blaspheming Shiva in the arena, there were followers of Shiva also. They got agitated and they started cursing. So from Daksha's side, there were rishis. There was Bhrigu Muni. There were other exalted sages who were present. And from Shiva's side also, there were his followers. And they started cursing and counter-cursing. They became agitated and disturbed, and they started cursing and counter-cursing. This is material anxiety, disturbance. What did Lord Shiva do? What did he do? Calm nahi. Uske aage kya kiya? He went away from that place silently. He didn't do anything. He didn't even react. He just left the place silently. But same Lord Shiva, when he got to know that his wife, Sati, she has self-immolated herself, she goes further, despite Shiva's advice not to go to another time, to same Daksha's place where she was uninvited. Her sisters were invited, but she was not. And when she goes and she feels she's not welcome in that place, she heard the blasphemy of her husband, the great Vaishnava, Shiva, then she puts herself on fire. This time Shiva didn't keep quiet. This time he didn't walk away silently. And Bhagavatam mentions what Shiva did. I'll show you. I'll tell you that in the words. What he did was he created a demon by name Virabhadra from his hair, from this matted lock of hair. And this Virabhadra didn't spare anyone from Yaksha's side, including Yaksha, the powerful person, Yaksha. He was beheaded. Why I'm saying this? Well, this is not in... I don't want you to see the whole thing, but unfortunately it is not in an animation mode, so you'll see. But please restrict your vision. See what I'm showing in the first thing. The sage Maitreya said, when such cursing and counter-cursing was going on between Lord Shiva and Lord Shiva's followers and the parties of Daksha and Bhrigu, Lord Shiva became very morose. Not saying anything, he left the arena of the sacrifice, followed by his disciples. That I explained. Then what happened? Thus Lord Shiva, being extremely angry. So this is the second time when Sati has burnt herself. Shiva became angry, pressed his lips with his teeth. And just like Shiva is angry, you can imagine what will happen. And immediately snatched from his head a strand of hair, which blazed like electricity or fire. Then he stood up at once, laughing like a madman, and dashed the hair to the ground. That's how the Virabhadra he was born, and he finished the whole party of Yaksha. But as I said, Daksha was beheaded, and they put a goat's head on him. And this Daksha goes for forgiveness to Lord Shiva. This is interesting in Bhagavatam. Not this, just the stories. So when Daksha comes back to Shiva, how was Shiva's position? Was he still angry, enraged? I'll not spare you. Shiva was calm. Lord Shiva sat there surrounded by saintly persons, and Prabhupada mentions because he was having association of devotees. Lord Shiva sat there surrounded by saintly persons like Kubera, the master of the Guhyakas, and the four Kumaras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and saintly. Same Lord Shiva who walked away silently, who was angry for a reason. His anger was not because of agitation of mind, not because of wavering of mind. It is to teach lesson to Daksha. These are great personalities. Sometimes spiritual master also can get angry for correction, for some chastisement. That's not the same as our reacting to the modes of material nature because of our wavering mind. So Lord Shiva, but Prabhupada mentions the importance of sadhu sangha. Yesterday we were talking about the 5 important principles of devotional life. Association of devotees and hearing the words of a pure devotee spiritual master is very important to understand the secret or the essence of devotional life. It cannot be understood by one's own effort when somebody is just chanting and sitting in a secluded place and doing some things. One has to come in association of devotees to realize what needs to do, what needs to be done, how to conduct. This cannot be, there's no other way to learn this. So Lord Shiva sat there surrounded by saintly persons like Kuvera, the master of the Guhyakas, and the 4 Kumaras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and saintly. And then the last point, the demigod saw Lord Shiva situated in his perfection as the master of the senses, knowledge, fruitive activities, and the path of achieving perfection. He was the friend of the entire world, and by virtue of his full affection for everyone, he was very auspicious. So Lord Shiva was situated in his perfection because his mind is always absorbed in Krishna, in transcendence. So the demigods saw Lord Shiva situated in perfection as the master of the senses, knowledge, fruitive activities, and the path of achieving perfection. He actually forgave all this yaksha and all parties he forgave. He knew the big picture. He was always having the big picture understanding in life. So he knew at this point in time, I'm supposed to forgive. Not that I have to show my anger or something of that sort of that time. The important thing is in our life also, sometimes in day-to-day rules, regulations, rituals, we forget the essence, the big picture in life. And when we forget that big picture, then life becomes topsy-turvy. Srila Prabhupada speaks in Bhagavad Gita purport of 17th chapter, 16th verse, when it talks about austerity of mind. And he says something very interesting in the purport. To make the mind austere, we think to make our mind austere or to control the mind, you have to go to do something gymnastic. But here Prabhupada is saying to make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. And it should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. Actually, this is a secret. The idea of controlling the mind, if you really want to control your mind, one way is, if it is trained to think of doing good for others, like Lord Shiva did when these people came. He was not agitated or angry or anything of that sort. If we are becoming an instrument in Prabhupada's mission, in doing some things, in introducing Krishna consciousness to somebody or distributing books, trying to see that if this person takes up to Krishna consciousness, actually our mind will be anxiety free. Mind needs engagements. That is why mind needs to follow these 4 regulations. Mind needs to do this because this is given by the Lord. And when we do this, then the mind becomes agitation free. So all the orders of spiritual master, when we follow with the mood that this is meant for, even if it is a small work like cleaning the temple, but if it is done with the right intention and the right understanding that when the temple is clean, this is Lord's temple. When a person comes, he will feel happy, or he will see that, oh, well, this is a well-maintained, nice, spick and span temple. He develops a desire to come back further. We get the benefit. Our mind is also unagitated in that case because I'm engaging the mind in devotional service of the Lord. So Prabhupada is saying it should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. To conclude our time together, I want to speak of the verse which is very dear to Srila Prabhupada, which he speaks many times. This is again from Mukundamala Stotra, where Kulashekara Alvar says, Krishna Tvadiya Padapankaja Panjarantam Advaiva me Vishatuman Saraja Hamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kafavata Pitte Kantavarodhana Vidho Smaranam Kutaste. In this verse, we've spoken this many times, but there is a very beautiful word that we should see called Panjara. Panjara is the network. Krishna Tvadiya Padapankaja Panjarantam Advaiva me Vishatuman Saraja Hamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kafavata Pitte Kantavarodhana Vidho Smaranam Kutaste. So Kulashekara Alvar is telling, O Lord Krishna, at this moment, let the royal swan of my mind enter the tangled stems of the lotus of your feet. Let it not get, it's a network. It's a network of the lotus, tangled stems of the lotus of your feet. Not get caught up in this material things. Let my mind take shelter of the Padapankaja Panjarantam, the lotus feet of the Lord, in the form of this lotuses which are entangled. Let my mind go and just be there. If my mind is fixed in that transcendence, it will not waver. And let me do that right now, because I don't know that, when my final time comes, prana prayana samaya, when kaphavata pitta, there is an imbalance, and kantava rodhana, I'm not able to speak, when the words don't come out, how will I remember you? How will it be possible for me to remember you at the time of death, when my throat will be choked up with mucus, bile, and air? The reason I brought this up is because this is the big picture understanding which we need to have. This is what yesterday's verse also was talking about. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravinda. Fixing our mind on the lotus feet of the Lord. When we take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, when we understand that this whole creation has sprung by the Lord's minute desire, it's like a speck of the dust from his lotus feet is enough to create this creation. Then what is there to fear about? And seeing the hands of the Lord in every situation and not trying to have some reversals or trying to do some counteraction in life. And all these examples, be it Pratha Maharaja, such powerful, extraordinary king who was trying to, kill Indra, or Shiva, who showed differently. They were all aware of the big picture, and remembering that big picture, they could control their mind. But despite knowing everything, despite hearing everything, despite knowing that our mind wavers and there is a need to control, if still there is problem. These are the concluding words of Srila Prabhupada from a lecture on Nectar of Devotion given in Kolkata on 27 January 1973. If we lack enthusiasm to do devotional service in our life, in case, because of our disturbed mind, because of our agitation, what should we do? Prabhupada says very beautifully, if you want actually to make progress in your devotional life, utsaha, enthusiasm is the first thing. And for some reason, if you're lacking enthusiasm, you should rest. He says that's all, you should rest. Don't create further agitation. Instead of making too much agitation within the mind, if you cannot find out, so something has dropped in the water, in the river, you cannot see the things dropped within the water by agitating the water. Just stand still for some time. Just allow the agitation to settle down. Just stand still for some time. As soon as the water is settled up, you will see the things as they are. So as soon as our enthusiasm is agitated, it is better to sit down in any temple suitable and chant Hare Krishna. Chant Hare Krishna. Don't get agitated. Don't get caught up. There are things which will not happen as the way we want it, and there is no point getting agitated in that. And Prabhupada says further, there is no question of being disappointed. After all, we commit so many mistakes. That is human nature. To err is human. That is not fault. But try to rectify with cool head. That is required. I'll stop here. If anybody has any question or comment.
There is something that I was trying to I'm not in what that coming from
world of ours.
Souls. Can't have Brahma to come and tell us whether if there are any reversals. But what we are confused with is if I give my complete effort to that one karma, or is it just a reversal that it is not this time for me? How will you differentiate that?
So here is a question. I don't know if you could hear it. The question was for Pratha Maharaj when he was so close to that 100th sacrifice, and he could not do it. Brahma came to tell him that refrain, don't do it. But in our life, there could be some failures, and we may try one more time. How do we know that this is over endeavor, or we should not be looking for it? And how do we act basically? Who's the Brahma in our lives? The answer is very simple. Actually, it is not so difficult. First of all, when we see some things like that happening in our life, we need to understand that there is some higher, higher arrangement by the Lord. There is a will of providence which is there. Nobody is telling that don't try, but over endeavor, as we know in Nectar of Instruction also, Utsaha, Nischaya, Dhairya. The next one. Atyahara Prayasascha. Prajalpa Niyama. Prayasa is that over endeavor for achieving something which is material or mundane. Now, how do we know that the activity that we are doing, whether it is material or spiritual? Because first that thing has to be clear in our mind. Whether it is meant for my own business or it is meant for Krishna's satisfaction. That distinction is there. If you're trying to achieve something very material and mundane, then over endeavor should not be done. But in spiritual life also, when we are trying something for Krishna's sake, we may encounter failure. Is it like we should refrain there, or we should continue? Now that kind of a question is very case to case and can only be understood by knowing the essence from the association of devotees. That is the only way. There is no other way. Because your mind will only give justification to your action, your thought. It will tell you that, no, you should go for it. If you feel that, that there is some merit, there is some juice in it, I'll go for it. Or if you think that it is too difficult for you, you will not try. Maybe it is required that you should try one more time. That can only be known by association of devotees, by hearing from our authority. This is the mystical way Srila Prabhupada's instructions work in our lives. When we hear them and when we follow them, seemingly impossible thing becomes possible. And seemingly, because this is will of the Lord, you're empowered to act in certain situations. So when you become empowered, your power is very tiny, but Lord is giving you that rest of the things. Any other question? Weakness of heart is when you are allowing your mind to hear or absorb on material things. Like that. So material things, you know it. You don't need somebody to come and tell you, hey, you are doing a material things. We know it very well. For example, let's say after having become a devotee, I still watch some movies. Or I do something which I used to do in my past life. I continue doing that. Then I'm feeding my mind with all those material stuff, material things. I'm bombarding that. Shrotavyadini Rajendra, Nrinam Santi Sahasrasha, Apasyatam Atmatattva. It is not related to my Atmatattva. So when I'm allowing that to happen, then automatically there is a weakness of heart which comes. Resolution doesn't come. So that impressions or the thoughts lead to actions and habits. That sleeping in the night and whatever that Nidraya Hriyate Raktam, whatever that verse, right? Divacha Haya Rajam, Kutumba Varanena. So all those thoughts, this becomes those, because I've fed myself with those materialist thoughts. You see some material house, some person who's going with his wife or some girlfriend or something, and you develop a desire. Nice car, Mercedes, big house, nice, whatever. All the subtle things, whether we are grahastha, brahmachari, whatever ashrama we are in. Ashrama means there is no shrama. You have taken shelter of the Lord. You want to serve with that objective, we are here. But when we allow our mind to get exposed to all these things unrestrictedly, without control, then those subtle desires come. That becomes weakness of heart. And when those weakness of heart grows, then wrong habits, wrong actions, and wrong habits and wrong actions only will lead to putting our anchor in wrong shelters, wrong things. Impermanent things, we see there is a possibility that it may save us. It may save me in my time of crisis. One line purport. Brilliance of eloquence. If you see, we'll read that one line. So beautiful, actually. Translation is, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Prabhupada writes in the purport, a truly Krishna conscious person, always absorbed in transcendence, in constant, undisturbed meditation on the worshipable Lord, is as steady as a lamp in a windless place. Beautiful verse. So we'll stop here and continue seeing this 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Before we do that, can I request all of you to come in front of the camera and raise your hands? We will chant once Hare Krishna mantra and stop. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jagrantara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.